And let's see. Here we go. Going to do this. Fantastic. Wow, that was great. My guest today is Jovino Santos. And do I say Neto too?
Yeah, if you want, yes. It's part of it. It means grandson. It means I have the same name as my grandfather.
Oh, cool. Well, that was really beautiful. Was that that was a tribute to Hermeto Pascoal's 80th birthday? Was that his song?
Yeah, that's one of his most iconic compositions called Bebe by Hermeto Pascoal.
Great song. Nice arrangement too.
Thank you. We play with my quinteto. It's one of our favorite tunes to do too because it's such a fun tune.
Yeah. And Ben Thomas on vibes, Chuck Deardoff on bass, Mark Ivester on drums, and Jeff Bush on percussion.
That's right.
Where are the Brazilian guys? It's just a joke.
So playing Brazilian music, I mean, there's a lot of people born in Brazil who could not hold the samba together with their life depending on it.
Oh, sorry. Hold on.
Music, I mean,
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm very fortunate to be living here in Seattle for 28 years now and to have met these musicians like Chuck on bass and Mark on drums. I met as soon as I got here in Seattle. So we've been playing together for 28 years.
Oh, my.
Jeff a couple of years later and Ben a couple of years later. So we go at least 15 years together playing this music. And I never have to worry because one thing that does not really fit, even though people mention that, is the question of authenticity in Brazilian music. Because if you'll be a music that's totally indigenous to Brazil, music that was born in Brazil, out of Brazilian DNA, then you could think about that. It must be very hard to play Albanian music if you're not from Albania.
Yeah.
Or to play music from Burma if you're not from there, because really that's the tradition. But in the case of Brazilian music, it's basically a giant melting pot of influences from all over, including Eastern Europe, Western Africa, North Africa, Persia, India, the United States, France. I mean, and plus indigenous traditions too from Brazil. So that mixture makes it so that somebody who can feel it, and people enter that universe through different doors. It's not that just like one gateway. So some people come from classical music, some people come from dance music, some people come from jazz. And all of these doors will lead into this place where you can learn. So I'm very proud of having a band with people who are here from the Pacific Northwest. And we're not interested in playing authentic Brazilian music. We're not doing kind of like a carnival show or with the passistas, with the girls in the bikinis and the feathers, because that we don't look good in bikinis to start with.
Thank you.
But on the other hand, there's an essence to this music. There's a spirit to this music, which I think if you feel it right, I play with musicians from all over the world, and some get it.
Yeah.
And the ones that get it, it's so much fun to play with, and then it's all fun from there.
Yeah. The other day, actually, I was at a little session, and there was actually a Japanese piano player who was playing a samba, and he really had a good authentic feel. The drummer didn't get it. So the drummer was really kind of lost on where to put the beat,
I know.
It was really interesting,
Yeah, I've been there, done that, as you say.
Sure.
And so what happens is that, well, sometimes you have to really think that the musicians who are creative, they're not trying to pretend like they were born in a different place than they were born.
Yeah.
That you cannot do. You are born somewhere in a certain place, in a certain time, in a certain culture, in a certain musical environment. You can never deny that.
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't mean you cannot expand that.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Sometimes people want to erase who they are to try to get like a new DNA, and that's just biologically it's not possible. So you have to respect where you come from and just take an increase. That's why I love to play music from India and China and West Africa and those places, because I'm not from there. But I like to put my musical sensitivity at the service of the music by just saying, hey, I don't know this. So I'm going to try to stay to edge closer to the center of that circle, but without just jumping, saying, I know how this is done. So sometimes it just means you sit somewhere and just go. And that's the extent of what you're going to do, but that enables you to listen.
Yeah.
Music is a lot more about reception than transmission. So if you're receiving well, what you transmit is going to be informed by that.
Yeah. By the way, George Cables is on watching.
Oh, awesome. Big hug. Oh, man, I love George Cables.
I know.
I'm a big fan. Yes, man. Thank you for being here, George.
He's the best.
Oh, awesome.
Such a sweetheart, too. Yeah, there's a drummer here who, Jay Bellerose. He's really interesting. He plays with some touring people, too. I think he plays sometimes with James Taylor and people like that. But he plays with, like Larry Goldings plays with him. And the guy, the drumming that he does is so, it really comes off of what you're saying. First of all, he has a tiny set and he plays minimally.
Yep.
But everything he plays, like Bob, it's perfect. And you watch and listen and you're like, how is it so perfect? He's barely playing, you know? He's really an interesting drummer.
Awesome. That's very good. I mean, that's a lot of the concept of listening
Yeah.
and finding what you say within the windows of what's happening, you know? So you don't want to be redundant and you don't want to be, there's an element of contrast in music and there's an element of repeating something. But which one is it going to be? So there's no answer except use your intuition and use your ears, you know? And that's something we never stop learning. Like our inner ears keep evolving until we're no longer here. So next week I'm going to be hearing more than I'm hearing this week. So I'm hoping for that, and really kind of building up this. You build up your capacity of observation, and not just observation with your eyes, because that doesn't matter. You close your eyes and when you play music. It's observing with your ears, and that's an art and the skill that we want.
Yeah. I'm curious. I'm curious about a lot of stuff, but I'm really curious about why you went to Seattle. Seattle, right? Is that where you-
That's where I am. Yeah.
Oh, I'm curious why you went there.
It's funny because I don't have like a logical explanation. I wish I did, but the story is that in 1990, I was with Hermeto Pascoal. As you know, with 15 years, I played in this band. And in 1990, we did our first US tour. And on that tour, we played everywhere. We started in Miami, went up the East Coast, we went to Chicago, then went California, San Diego, LA, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, Vancouver. When we landed here in Seattle, and I just felt a vibe that I didn't feel anywhere else. I mean, I love all these other places and they're fun. I have friends in all of these places, but somehow when I landed here, it was more like just a feeling that, wow, and I wasn't looking to move anywhere else. I wasn't like, oh, I need a place to go to. I wasn't searching actively for anywhere to go to. I just said, wow, I actually could live here. We went by car from Seattle to Vancouver, British Columbia. And on the way, we had to take the ferry to go to Victoria. And then I saw these whales and those islands and the water and the mountains. Somehow that did a trick with me that said, wow, what a beautiful place. In a way, it reminds me of where I'm from. I'm from Rio, and the greenery and the deep green waters and the mountains by the water. All that was resonating with me as being somebody from Rio. But of course, that was 1990. So the following year, we did a second tour, and it happened again. I mean, I felt in Seattle just a different vibe than everywhere else. So the following year after that, which was 1993, then it was time for me to leave Hermeto's band in a nice way. There was no breakup or anything. The band did not break up, but it just was an issue of development and maturity that I felt that I needed to go acquire a new set of skills, which would be like mainly conducting, working with a wider variety, and also my own music, my own composition, because in Hermeto's band, we played Hermeto's music, which is beautiful. But I had also a voice as a composer that within that context that didn't have the opportunity to express. So coming to Seattle, in a way, it was one of those things. Everything that's usually a big obstacle to immigration, such as, immigration, documentation, paperwork, money. And I didn't have any of that. I came with my family, my wife and 2 kids, basically with a couple suitcases and a student visa. So it's like crazy.
Wow.
Nuts, But we were, and we are. So taking that chance, in a way, enabled me, because I came as a student to teach, to study at a college here in Seattle. And 6 months later, I'm teaching at that college. So things like, and the documentation, we just, out of
It
chance.
just came, yeah.
Yeah, things came together and clicked in a way that none of this was like a uphill battle. Things clicked into place. So when those things happen, you have to be grateful, because we know that's not usually the way things go. But you don't question it either. So here we are all these years later, and I do love to travel, and I don't feel that I left Rio. I just feel that my concept of home has expanded. So now I'm at home in more places than one, actually many different places. So, but having Seattle, the Pacific Northwest, as a place to live for me is very good. I love nature. I love the ability to make music. Everything I do is music related. That
Yeah.
I'm teaching, composing, playing, rehearsing, and so that for me makes me a happy person. I'm fulfilled at what I do, and like to share it with others, and I can do that too.
That's cool. Very cool. Seattle is quite beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very beautiful.
Hmm.
My husband is a California boy, and he doesn't want to go anywhere that actually gets cold for long periods of time. So I'm like, well, that kind of limits, limits where you go. I mean, to move, But yeah, I'm from Boston.
All right. Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah,
cool. It's a
yeah,
beautiful place
very
too.
nice.
But
It's
I lived in Montreal for 3 years when I was studying biology.
oh,
And so, yeah, I know that kind of weather. And yes, it's good, but not for the long haul. For me, it gets too cold.
yeah,
And so I think Seattle is actually the right amount of temperate
yeah,
weather where we get, the nice chilly, but it never gets rarely gets like freezing.
yeah.
So usually it's the drizzle. Hey, you put a raincoat, go out on the bike, you're out and about. And actually, that's my favorite biking weather is the drizzle weather. My first bike ride was not in the summer. It was actually a couple of weeks ago when it started to rain, and I go, wow, so nice to go out in the drizzle rain. It's so pretty, refreshing.
Yeah, that's really nice. You mentioned before we came on that you had this project that you were working towards with 3 pianos.
Yes.
Who are the other pianists?
This is a very special project. There's actually a producer in the Bay Area who works mainly with tango music and tango dance. But for many years already, he's been commissioning music from South American composers that either not necessarily tango, but music that's related to the South American music traditions.
Yeah.
So I've done a couple of things with him in the Bay Area, San Francisco, where we had actually a 3 piano project in 2008 in San Francisco at what do you call the Palace of Fine Arts. And now he wanted to do a recording project with 3 pianists. I'm one of them. The other 2 is Polly Furman, who is a beautiful pianist from Uruguay. She specializes in South American composers. She's actually living in Spain right now.
Oh,
And Erika Nikrantz, who's the classical pianist from the Eroica Trio, which is a classical music piano, cello, violin trio that specializes, as the name says, in classical chamber music.
ah,
So there will be the 3 of us playing 4 suites, 4 compositions for 3 pianos. I wrote one of them.
wow.
And then we have Daniel Binelli, who's a great tango, who played with Piazzolla. It's a bandoneonist who played Piazzolla from Buenos Aires. And he wrote 1 suite. And then Miguel de l'Aquila from Uruguay is another composer. and then Juan Pablo Jofre from Argentina too. So it's like four. I'm the only Brazilian. And this is a recording that hopefully will take place at Abbey Road Studios, and it's being postponed a few times, but hopefully it's going to happen soon. It's very complex music. I've been practicing a lot to get it under my fingers and into my head. It's
Yeah.
beautiful, great work to do.
Wow. God, I look forward to hearing that. That's going to
It'll
be
be fun. Yeah.
gorgeous, really interesting. Yeah. Um, 1 year 2 years, 1 or 2 years. I think maybe 1 year I went to Resistencia in Argentina, and there was this camp during the summer, music camp for a week, and actually Hermeto was there, and
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I got to meet him and watch him in action. It was really an interesting thing. This one class he was giving, I came in after I had taught, and everybody was like electrified, and he was on the stage just composing like a little
Yep.
something, and he wanted everybody to play it whatever instrument they played.
Yep.
And there was this old woman who had come with her daughter for some reason, and she was at the stage like shaking and watching. She was so into it, and her daughter kept trying to pull her away, to sit down. It wasn't going to happen. But that was really amazing. And of course, he gave a concert, or yeah, at least one concert. But that must have been a really amazing time. And were you very young when you started with him?
Yep, I was 23 and I stayed with him for 15 years. And when you say you play in a band, usually people think, well, it's okay, you play a couple gigs here and a couple gigs. No, that was a full-time job. Nobody in that band at that time played in any other ensembles. We rehearsed 5 days a week, 6 hours a day, rain or shine.
God, really?
Yeah, so that's the kind of like, if people say that, let's say
Wow.
the 10,000 hours that you need to acquire
Yeah.
a level of mastery. So if you multiply that by 15 years of 6 hours a day, 6 hours is just the number, because many times we got earlier and stayed longer. So it
Yeah.
was just many thousand hours of work together developing, because it's like a postdoctoral experience in which you are learning composition, technique, arrangement, leadership, psychology. In my case, being a road manager for the band, because I was also that for all the
Oh,
world tours we did. I was the person who had to coordinate the everything, all the details,
oh
what
my
time,
God.
the train, the next gig, and the money and all that stuff. Back in the day when every country had a different currency, in
Yeah.
Europe, and so that there was something that was fun to do. But again, on the other hand, I still work with Hermeto. As a matter of fact, I'm right now. I can show you right here in front of me. This is it's a score. It's a brand old, because it's something has never been played or recorded. But I have the archives of Hermeto's music, which I brought with me, being the archivist of his music. And I found this beautiful pieces actually for jazz orchestra. And I'm right now putting it together on my computer, and just, you have to go with a big magnifying glass, you have to kind of like, this is my tools of my trade right here, the big, open up the big magnifying glass so you can look at the music and, this big thing like this, to look at the tiny notes that are meant. I mean, the more you think about it, it's like amazing. He's a guy who is legally blind.
Yeah.
He never read a book or a newspaper in his life. He can't.
Wow.
He looks at the letters, nothing. So he
Wow.
puts the paper on his nose, and he goes like tiny little dots on the page like this, and then he can't see anymore what he wrote. And then when you play it, it's like, oh my God, it's this amazing music. And so he's really one of those things that you can call a genius, because of how this music flows through him, and he's able to capture it in the medium of notation, but he's also an amazing improviser. So in other words, he not only writes very well, he plays amazingly a variety of instruments, piano, flute, and saxophones, and strings, and plus instruments that nobody considers instruments, like, the tea kettle or
I know, a piece of paper. Yeah.
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 It's music is just an art of sounds for him,
Yeah.
and it's that he is able to translate that into notes. It's really beautiful. So I feel very honored and privileged to have this apprenticeship, and we still work together. Hermeto's 85, and I'm just, as I said, should be actually for something in England too, for the National Youth Jazz Orchestra of England. So this will be fun to work with young musicians, and that's something that I know Hermeto is very inspired by working with young people, because he started working with me when I was very young. So the ability to pass this music, not just to kind of like own it and close it, but to be sharing. And I think that this is really a characteristic of great musicians. And you see that in all the great musicians that we can hear about, whether it's Miles Davis or Wayne Shorter, is that they really open to
Yeah.
to sharing what they know with the other generations. Like I see Wayne now working with Esperanza Spalding, which is so beautiful, just so inspiring, working in an opera right now. So that for me is really where music should be. People still trying, there's still a lot of people thinking about, because music can be used as a means of separation, tribalizing. If you're
Yeah.
not in that group, you cannot play this music. If you don't play in this music, you're not in that group. So classical music works this way, jazz works this way, rock and roll works this way. And then there's some musicians who are simply not in that level where the music has walls between it.
Yeah.
You are in a place where, hey, what I do is managing sounds and vibrations, and that you can do with anybody. And then realize that children and young people actually have that less polluted than older people do. So by working with younger people, you actually keep your own attitude to music, that of a learner, of a beginner. Much better to be a beginner than to be a finisher in music. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you happen to know a musician named Tizigi Munoz?
Say it slowly.
Tizigi Munoz.
I don't think so.
I'm going to send you a link to him. I think you would really be intrigued by him. He's a percussionist and guitarist, and he's played with some like bigger older jazz people, and also he's free. He's very free, and he's creative. Whatever comes out, he could come out with the most sensitive ballad, and then on the other hand, be like jazz rock guitar, and he's a really interesting man.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always interested. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll have to send that. Okay, so oh well, first of all, I would love to hear a little something else. Do you want to play a little of your new record?
Yes, I have a new record, just came out a couple months ago, and it's a solo piano record that was done during the pandemic. Was late in 2020. I was invited to go near here, Seattle, to a piano store that had a big Fazioli piano. The Faziolis are really interesting instruments because they're all handmade, and they all have like a very different way of responding to being played, because they're so sensitive as an instrument. They can respond to tiny little variations on the dynamics, on the attack, most pianos do, but this is like takes that to another extreme.
What is this piano?
The brand it's Italian. It's called Fazioli. Sounds like some kind of pasta, but actually it's Fazioli. Fazioli.
Yeah.
Made somewhere near Venice, and I'm not associated with them in any way. I just happen to love the instrument. And what happens when you play an instrument like that is that, first of all, the instrument starts to respond to you.
Yeah.
And second, you respond to the instrument. So the instrument transforms the musician, and the musician transforms it. So it's like a very interesting conversation like we're having now.
Yeah.
And things keep changing as the process goes along. So they asked me to come in and actually do one song for some project that they needed the music. And I said, okay. And they set up all these beautiful microphones, you know, like 6 microphones around the piano and everything. So it was feeling so good that I said, why don't I just keep on playing? So I just told the guy, I mean, it was after hours, so the store was closed. I went after the store closed, and there was totally social isolated. I was alone, and there was another guy in another room, 2 rooms away, recording. And I just sat and I played for like an hour straight. I only stopped between songs, and I had no idea what I was going to play. Like I got there and I started to play. Whatever came to my head. It was like kind of like free association. You start with an improvisation, and then a song asks to be played, and I honored that request. And then at one point you stop, and I would take like a couple seconds and then start a new one. And that record, actually, because it was so well recorded, I'm very happy it came out. So I'll be happy to play something for you. So let me see. This would be, I'm just finding here.
And by the way, Joyce Glasgow says hello.
Oh, hello, Joyce. She's a good friend. She lives near Seattle. Don't get to see her much, but hello, Joyce. I'm gonna play for you a composition of mine, and this is called Iluminado. And I'll play it from my computer here, but you'll probably be able to hear it nicely there. It's a choro, but there it goes. Okay, it's about 5 minutes.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. That was fun. I thought the sound is so big.
I have a friend who has a choro band that I've heard a bunch. But what actually makes that song a choro? Is it the rhythms or is it a repetitive or
It's a because the choro has some. It's a style of music that has been in existence for like over 150 years.
yeah.
And because of that, there's a lot of from the original. So this is a choro because it's a very simple 2/4 kind of groove. It's not
Yeah.
as syncopated as the samba is, even though you can play the choro as a samba. So the choro is one of the elements that led to the appearance of the urban samba. So everything is derived from that. So the choro originally was just a very Africanized Brazilian way to play polkas, mazurkas,
Oh,
waltzes from
oh,
Eastern Europe, because that's the music that people were playing
oh.
in the mid 1800s in Europe, and that came to Brazil with the court and the whole thing. But it got different. It took a different twist in Brazil. It's like everything gets
Yeah.
gained in translation when they moves into a place that where people hear it with different. You have accent not only in the way that you speak, but there's also an accent in the way that you hear. So
Yeah.
when you hear some music and you have that accent in your ear, you will kind of like feel it slightly different. So essentially, the music that used to be kind of like
Yeah.
so that kind of so suddenly starts to sound like a choro because you're taking that thing that was square
Yeah.
and you made it more syncopated, and that's the African part in there, because feeling it instead of feeling as a straight punky 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 punky, and then choro always has some kind of element of, because of its origin in the polkas and mazurkas, and there's an element of technical virtuosity necessary, because almost every choro has something. It's not necessarily like a vocal style, even though there are songs in the style of choro, like
Yeah.
Carinhoso, it's one of the most famous by Pixinguinha. That's a song that people sing. But mostly choro is an instrumental thing that has the way the notes are set up. It's more for instrumental playing. It came from people playing violin, flute, clarinet, and piano, of course, and guitar eventually, and the cavaquinho, the mandolin became the instrumentation of choro. I'm right now teaching a class on Brazilian piano, online class, and that's one of the things we talk about how the piano in choro music started to incorporate what the string instruments were doing, like the cavaquinho, or kind of like a Brazilian version of the ukulele, right? So the
Yeah. Yeah.
cavaquinho and the mandolin and the guitar bass lines. So the piano kind of incorporated all that, and in a way brought the street music into the salon, into the
Yeah.
drawing room kind of like music. So it's a very interesting to look at this music in the context of its social, cultural, political context.
Yeah. It's really amazing. This friend of mine, Ted Falcon.
Oh, I know that, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I
He
played
has,
on his record, yeah.
oh,
I played a chord in one of his records.
he has like a choro, he leads a choro group once a month, and then I booked him in a place, a venue, and oh, it was great. I just
Oh, he's a
loved
great
the
violin and mandolin. He plays very well,
he's
yeah,
very talented. Yeah, extremely talented.
absolutely.
You have a few hellos here. Chris Seimer.
Oh, hello. Well, great Chris Seimer, bass player from Seattle here.
I know.
Miss
He was
hearing
on
him.
one of my records because he used to live down here.
Yeah.
Tekka.
Oh, wow. Yes, I love Tekka. We had so much fun at Jazz Camp playing music, just jamming on tunes. She knows so many tunes. It was so much fun to play with her. Love her
Yeah.
voice too.
And Nika Reto is here. Do you know Nika, the flutist?
Nika. Oh, I think I know her.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe we met once with, what was his name? It was a saxophone player, and I think she came with him. I don't remember. It's been a long time. But I do remember the name Nika. She was from LA, probably it's Taiwan. I don't know.
Originally from LA, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Oh, my friend has given me a large uh, overview of your credits. So I always like to show people this because, I mean, sometimes we don't even see these, but it's just, starting.
Oh, from allmusic.com, yeah.
Yeah, and it's from 2017 back, and oh, you did a lot of work with No Brazil and Mari.
Yes, I've composed and arranged music, and I recorded on their record too.
Oh, cool. And Chuck is really a great player.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's very nice
I
to.
just played with them on Friday, and it's so. I mean, Chuck is one of those guys that we know each other for so long. See, that's an interesting thing when you play music. There's both the fact that it's great to play music with people you've been playing music for 25, 28 years together, like in the case of Chuck and Mark, because we complete each other's lines because
Yeah,
we have that thing, that
yeah,
coherence, the cohesion. But at the same time, and that's the mystery of music, sometimes you got to go and play with people you've never played with before, and that's a different level of connection. Like I was at the Jazz Camp Fest over Labor Day weekend, and I got to play with musicians that normally I never play with. I got to play with like Dana Stevens and
oh yeah,
Claiborne and Steve Hogan. These are people that I never gigged with before, but that beautiful thing so I like both the fact that you can play music with the people you've played forever,
yeah,
and also play music with people you never played with before, and it's different, and it makes for a very interesting kind of like activity. You never fall into the same rut.
yeah. It's so true, and you never know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you just start. It just happens. That happened to me last week. I went to see Jeremy Siskind, and we went to just jam a little. He's a pianist. Is like he started playing, and I immediately wanted to sing, and everything
There
that
you
he.
go.
It was magical. I didn't know that was going to happen. I knew I wanted to sing with him, but that was about it. So you did a lot of with Flora too. I had
Yeah.
her on, and of course with
Florida's great. Yeah, she's beautiful, and I mean, I had the pleasure of working with her in Airto for 3 years. We toured all over, made a few records together. It was always fun, and always a pleasure. She's a great musician. Just the stories, I mean, they have from playing with everyone, and
Yeah,
you sit down and there's so much that you hear about, all the great musicians.
yeah. Also, as a singer,
Oh yeah.
I didn't really think about it to tell you the truth until I was speaking with her, and then I realized she was kind of one of the leaders of jazz singing in a
Yep.
different way,
Yep.
like more modern, and I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, she really impacted us, you
Yep.
know.
I love listening to her records from the 70s. There's one called
Yeah,
Open Your Eyes, You Can Fly.
yeah,
Hermeto's on it too, and there's some great musicians, Airto, of course, and George Duke, and I mean, what she does with her voice, she can, pretty impressive. I mean, she can go anywhere. She's not afraid. That's what I like about it. That I mean, the singers are kind of so careful, which is okay too.
yeah,
But Flora, she would just go.
yeah,
And speaking of choro, I had this crazy choro, really wacky melody. It was not a vocal melody.
yeah,
Like there's no room to breathe.
yeah.
And Flora said, "Oh, I want to learn that." And I go, "You sure?" She says, "Yes." And then we sat down one day at her house. It like took a half an hour. I just went phrase by phrase. She wasn't reading any music. She was listening and singing along. And after a while, that became part of our repertoire. We never recorded that one. I recorded with my band, but not with them. But that she could sing the whole thing. And I go, oh my God. It's kind of,
Hey, Joyce is suggesting
hmm
to play a little music from one of your silent film scores. And also, she would like to hear you with Hermeto too.
Yeah, well, all that is possible. The thing about the silent film, well, first of all, there are no silent films because,
Because there's music.
yes, only the film is not silent, right? Silent films would be boring, but the fact that I was invited by the people here at the Paramount, Seattle Theater Group, this beautiful Paramount Theater, and I think because I don't really, it would not make much sense for me to play right here a piece, but it's on YouTube. So if you can,
Oh,
I
good.
can just,
I'll do it.
I will just put it here. I will find the link here, right here. 1 second. No, not that one. The film is called The Unknown, and just right here. And there's basically you can just This is it's a 15-minute thing, so you can choose to play as much as you want. I'll just get the link here for you, or I don't know.
This is the checkers.
Oh, hang on, it comes with an ad.
Oh, that was you.
Yeah, that was me. But let me just play without sound. No, you're good. I'll just send you the link.
Okay.
1 second.
Are you
So
going
you will hear on some of this. This is music that I composed for my quintet, and here we are. And I'll just put it on the chat box here, the link to and then you can share it.
All right.
And hopefully you won't have the ad. I mean, these things with YouTube is that you never know. They put the ad wherever they want. They don't pay you for it, but they put the ad. And yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. See, that was a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Just a few.
Yeah. And then you see scenes from the film.
Cool.
And this was filmed at the screening.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's a cuica making the roar of the lion. Joan Crawford. So the armless man has arms. Anyway.
Wow. Well, that's really cool. God, that looks like a great watch.
Yeah, it was fun. It's fun. It's a 50-minute film, and this is just a 15-minute compilation of the moments there. But anyway, you get the idea of what that was to do. And we had a full house at the theater. There was like, lots of people. So much fun to do that.
Let's see. Can we watch a little of you and Hermeto somewhere?
Oh yeah, gosh, there's so much of it. Why don't you? Let me play you something. Of course, I'm on a whole bunch of Hermeto's records,
Yeah.
but there's also one of my records that Hermeto played with, and we play one of his compositions, and he recorded on melodica and also on a glass of water. So one of the things Hermeto does is that he sings into a glass of water, so he can get the bubbles as a very beautiful musical effect on this voice, and he improvises also. So I can play that from my computer here. This is called. It's actually a tune that he dedicated to me. it.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Now I have to ask something. So is that an unusual time signature, or is it just that the hits are
It's
on?
7/4, yes.
It
So
is
7/4, which, depending where you're from, it's usual.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to be terrified of 7. because it was such a scary thing that back in the day, when I started, Hermeto was giving us this music in 7, 5, 9, 11, 13. They're kind of like odd, what they call odd meters.
Yeah.
And I was terrified because I couldn't count and play. Either I could count or I could play. And I go, trying to, it just didn't work. At one point, it just got to a degree of frustration that I just go, the whole thing, just forget about it and just play this thing.
Yeah, like feel it, right?
Like what numbers, you just like try to figure out the step. And that taught me a lot about understanding music and rhythm and trying to define instead of the meter, thinking about the gait. I love the concept of gait, like G-A-I-T. It's like a horse has different gaits. It gallops, it trots, it saunters, so music has that too. Music is movement. There's some kind of movement, even if it's just a movement of breathing, but it always represents movement. So once you realize biologically as a human being what kind of movement that song is, and then it's that. I remember talking to Airto about the same thing, and Airto talked about 7. It's like you're walking, and then at one point you just make, and everything, this whole concept of calling something odd is really weird because you never play one measure.
Yeah.
So let's say 7. You have 2 of those, it's 14. That's not odd anymore. So you just have to think of the bigger cycles, and everything is round. If you have a pizza, you can slice it, make 7 slices or 4 slices or 8 slices or 10 slices because the pizza is round. So if you start to understand the pulse of the music as being something that instead of marching along a ruler, it's actually going around like a clock, and then the whole concept becomes a lot more intuitive because you know where it's going to come back. You feel it. It's sequential.
Yeah.
So there's a sense of recurrence. Like your steps have recurrence. So when you're walking at a certain pace, you know what your next step. So if you see a water puddle, you know how many steps you need to not step in the water puddle. Or if you're a kid like my grandkids, to step in the water puddle because
That's cool. Yeah, I like that idea of round. That's great.
yeah. I mean, music works around in waves, and it's like it's not just circles, it's like spheres, right? Because it goes in every direction. So that's so beautiful. And if you could actually see music, because we don't, but if you actually see the waves of music, you realize that it's not even like those little things you see on Pro Tools when you see the waveforms.
Right.
That's just the shadow of the music. That's not that's like the music flattened, when like a shadow is flat. And you can recognize what the original object is from the shadow. But ultimately, sound is 4-dimensional. It works in a much bigger context because all of our references for explaining things are visual. When we find something like music that it can only, visual descriptions of music can only point you in the direction of the music, but they can never really describe what the feeling of music is.
Yeah.
Because it is invisible and intangible. So
Yeah.
you can't touch it.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yes.
I like to tell my students, we're not, the universe that we're entering is not, this universe, right? It's not, it's another universe. And as soon as we can get into that universe, the sooner the better. And then in there's all possibilities. There's no mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
You're always in the moment and kind of moving towards the future moment,
I love that.
Yeah. It's great. Did you, this is just a curiosity of mine. Do you go to Brazil camp as well?
I've been to Brazil camp many times. I have many friends there. The last time I was there was with Hermeto in 2017.
Oh, cool.
And if you look at, probably there's some YouTube videos of us playing together there. Because Hermeto was invited, and I was invited too.
Yeah.
And when we got there, I mean, we had no idea how many people, so it's hard to prepare music ahead of time. You don't know how many people are going to be there. So I prepared some kind of very generic music charts from Hermeto. And we get there, there's like 65 people. So that's already an orchestra.
Yeah.
It was a giant group because everybody wanted to be in Hermeto's ensemble. But it was so much nice to work because so the arrangement was pretty much created on the spot because we couldn't really write because we had no idea if there was going to be 12 or
Yeah.
20 or 30, and ended up being like 65.
Yeah.
So it was great. I was conducting mostly, but we had like 3 pianists, and Fabio Pascoal, Hermeto's son, who's a fantastic percussionist, took care of about a dozen percussionists in the back. And Hermeto was just like giving cues, and sometimes he would stop the whole thing and says, "I want on this note," and he would sing the note. And I go, "But Hermeto, it's like, this is an A flat chord. You're singing an A natural." That they kind of like, he says, "I don't care what note it is. This is the note I want." And you go, "Okay, I mean, he's the composer, right? He can do whatever he wants." So you play that note, and my God, it sounds so beautiful. Like, how he can pick something. I mean, his antennas are so well developed that he can hear 65 people and say, "Well, there's one little thing that if I put in there, it's going to make this." So over and over again, in my work with Hermeto's music, I found his writing to be, he defies everything because even though he's totally within the context of like what's explained by musicology and music theory,
Yeah.
he can do some things that any theorist, any person who's only basing themselves on the theoretical aspect of music, this is never work.
Right.
This is like impossible. It's wrong. And then you put it there, it sounds so beautiful, and you go like, and it's not like a sort of a matter of opinion. It's not even what you call a dissonance. It's just a different chord with a different vibe, and he can put like a chord that has a note in it that's like, you would never by the means of theory do that. So in a way, Hermeto's always pointing now to us how important intuition is in the making of music, and trusting. Because if he hears something, he goes for it. He doesn't, "Oh, what if," no, there's no, people cannot call his music experimental. That we do experiments when maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work. In Hermeto's music, it comes from a place of absolute conviction.
Yeah.
No, it's going to work. He heard it in his head, and you play it, and there it is. And you just have to respect that when you see it.
It's amazing. Was he, do you know, did he start when he was a child
Oh,
on that
yeah.
path? Yeah.
Hermeto been playing music his entire life.
Yeah.
The story goes that when he was small, his grandfather was a blacksmith who used to make like horseshoes, that kind of stuff, horseshoes and bells and, goat bells and cow bells. So his grandfather was always hammering stuff in the anvil there, and he would have a whole bunch of pieces of iron that he didn't want anymore, and he would just throw them in a pile of scrap iron. And Hermeto had a tiny little accordion that his father used to play, little 8-button accordion, it's almost like a toy.
Yeah.
And he would go and hang those pieces of iron on a fence and throw rocks at him. So you get this bang, bang, and then that harmonics. So it's natural because it's a piece of iron being hit by a rock. It can be more natural than that, but it's not like it's not chords like a, it's not that kind of chord. So this is really like, it scores more like a, that, and so you have to find names for things like that. But Hermeto never was worried about finding a name. So he could write this music. At the same time, he was playing super folkloric, like music you play in weddings and parties and everything in the interior of northeastern Brazil. He was also coming up with this voicings and sounds which are absolutely beyond, anything that could be defined. So that's what the incredible thing that for me it's been a non-stop source of inspiration, because when you study his music, your concepts and ideas are constantly being challenged.
Yeah.
Everything, "Oh no, I know everything. I studied. Trust me, I'm a music professor." And then you read something and go, "Wait, what is this thing?" It blows your mind in many different ways. So I love that because you keep learning, even though, all these years later, still learning this music by just studying it and playing it.
Very wonderful. Very deep and wonderful.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you about your you're coming up too. Like, where were you born, and did you
Mhm.
have siblings
Oh,
who were musical, or your
mm,
parents? Like,
well, I was born in Realengo, which is it's the city of Rio. I'm from
oh,
Rio, but this is like the west zone of Rio.
uh-huh.
It's not Ipanema, not at all.
Okay.
This is out there, and back in the day, it was still known as the rural zone of Rio. It's where you had still cows and but I was born in a sort of urban environment in which you get exposed to everything, to the radio. So I was born in 1954. So I was lucky to be listening to radio when radio was so eclectic. So you turn on the radio.
I'm sorry, I just have to turn my fan on because it's warm in here.
It's good to
So,
have fans.
yes, isn't it? Okay, my fan. Very good. Okay,
There you go.
sorry. Sorry about that. Uh, Go ahead.
Anyway, so you get exposed to the music that plays on the radio, and then back in those days, you turn on the radio and you would hear Frank Sinatra, the Beatles, rock and roll, bossa nova, Jobim, and it's such a wide, eclectic mix of music. And Brazil has really been always such an incredible treasure of musical styles, and I love to listen to, like, I have this app on my iPad that's like it's called Radio with a whole bunch of O's, so you can actually click on a country and on a decade. So I click like Brazil 1940s, and this music comes up that's like wow. Or I go Brazil 1960s or 1950s or 1970s, and you get the flavor of those decades of music. And because of this eclectic mix, you get exposed to everything, to samba music, because I lived fairly close to a samba school, so I would hear it in the wind, kind of like the so you hear the rhythms kind of come like a phase shifter coming in through the winds. And I would hear everything, you know. I didn't have any musicians in the family, in the immediate family, but my mother would always sing, and the radio, and the neighbors, and so there's that. And then when the television became a thing in the 1960s, mid-60s to the 70s, there was all these music festivals, which were broadcast nationally.
Yeah.
So you have not only national film music festivals or competitions of songs,
Yeah.
pretty much, but also international. So people come from abroad, and people like Jimmy Webb, for instance, to cite somebody from LA, was there, you know, presenting his music and things like this, and also national with all the great composers that we hear about: Chico Buarque de Holanda, Jobim, Edu Lobo, Milton Nascimento, all these people that they were there presenting the music. So I got to witness that just by watching TV. And I remember very clearly, actually I saw Hermeto for the first time playing one of those festivals, because I got intrigued by this little guy with no neck playing the flute with some really different sounds that I never heard the flute, or Airto playing a donkey jaw in this one song by Edu Lobo.
Donkey
And no,
jaw.
the song by, not by Edu Lobo, by Theo de Barros, called Ponte, no, called, yeah, Ponte was by Edu Lobo. There was another one called Disparada with Theo de Barros, who ended up in the Quinteto Novo with Hermeto and Airto. So in a way, I was already being part of the scene as a kid, listening
Yeah.
to it. So when I finally got to play with like Airto, and I mentioned that to him, he goes, "Oh, you know that thing?" You know, yeah, I was watching you on TV. And I was like, and I never forgot when he was playing like a donkey jaw, because I had never seen anybody playing something like that. You know, very interesting stuff.
Wow. So then did you go to school, or did you just go out and start playing, or what happened?
Well, I always enjoyed music. One thing that I can remember being a kid is that I was puzzled by the fact that after, you know, you hear music on the radio. Oh, there's a song, okay. And then you turn off the radio, go walk in the street, and the music's still playing. That was something that was triggering something. It was like, wait, you know, you heard somebody talk and then it's gone.
Yeah.
But the music would continue to be playing in my head. So the fact that you could carry that with you after it's finished, it was very kind of, So that means the music plays in your head, but it also plays on the radio. So it's like we could absorb that, and it would get a life of its own inside of our own ears, the inner ear. So, and then back in those days, I'm still from the old enough that it was like kind of like common for girls to learn the piano as part of upbringing of being a lady. You learn how to cook, how to sew, how to entertain. The piano was part of it. In Brazil, there's a big tradition going back to the 1800s in which, I just read an interesting quote. It's like the piano was for women what the cigar was for men. They would sit at the piano, like the man would sit at a cigar, and the women would sit at the piano. And my sister started taking piano lessons. So my father ended up buying a piano for her to take piano lessons. She was 2 years younger than me. And I was maybe 12 at the time. And I just fell in love with that thing. There was a piano in the house, so I could just go ahead and just start banging around. So I took some lessons, about 6 months of them, enough to know what the little dots meant on the keyboard. That's pretty much what I learned.
Yeah.
But it was like you just got a key
Yeah.
to a door. And then I go, oh, Johann Sebastian Bach. Well, I would just buy a book and just put it home and open up and then go, try to find my way. We say picking corn, like chicken picking corn, and it sounded nice. So, and then I got into, as everybody, teenager, got into listening to the Beatles, Rolling Stones, James Brown, Aretha Franklin. The radio was playing this stuff. So I started to try to catch it. So that was no score for that. I had to listen in the radio and try to play along. And I got a little tape recorder, like a reel-to-reel thing that I could actually put it on my battery radio and record the songs I like when they came on the radio. And then I have them next to the piano and I could bang away until it got fairly close to what they were. So playing by ear like this, it took me, I never thought of being a musician, but I always loved to play. So I had a band when I was 16, but I ended up going to Canada to study biology, because that's something I also really like a lot. So I ended up going to Canada to study biology, and of course met a whole bunch of musicians in Montreal. I ended up making another band, playing with them. So when I came back to Brazil, it was actually to do my master's in environmental biology, at the Research Institute of the Amazon. And I met Hermeto. And he invited me point blank and just say, hey, you want to play? And I go, no, but I got this, I have to study, I have this thing. He says, it's okay then, it's all right, you don't have to commit. Why don't you just play this one gig this week? And I go, okay. As they say, the first one is free, right? And then 15 years later, I go, man, that was like, what a trip.
Oh, man. That's a great story. Did you, obviously, Hermeto was a mentor to you. When
I love this story, mentor and a tormentor.
Yeah. If he was just a tormentor, that would be something else.
No, not good.
Is there anybody else who you really admired who made made your DNA change a little?
I would have to say that Airto Moreira too was very important. Airto showed me a whole bunch of different things that I learned through him, things about textures and things about finding spaces in the music, and in a way about just free playing. So I also enjoyed a lot playing with Airto. He's one of my mentors too, musically speaking, because I just love what he does. And then over the years, there have been many people that have inspired me, to play along, and people that I just have fun playing. Recently lost a great colleague, Paul Taub, was a flute player here in Seattle, and we got to do, and he was a person who immediately, when I got to Seattle, he was a teacher at the school where I was studying, and he immediately made himself available. Oh, this music is cool. So because Hermeto wrote so nice for the flute, we started to play flute duos, flute quartets, flute and piano duos. And he just passed away a few months ago, and sorely missed. But Paul also was a great person who opened many doors for me in the kind of classical chamber music, contemporary world. So I got with him to go to conferences of music and like National Flute Association, things like this, and got to write for a lot of flute. And Hermeto also had pieces for like 10 flutes, so we all got to perform this music through Paul's company. Yeah,
that must have been really fun. You knew Jay Clayton from Seattle, right?
I do. Actually, she was a teacher at here when I arrived. And my first gig in Seattle was with Jay Clayton. She's a beautiful singer and a fantastic, open mind, open ears. She's great.
I love her. She's actually planning on coming to the West Coast.
Oh yeah, she's playing at the festival here, I believe, at the Earshot Festival.
Yeah, because she's celebrating her 80th birthday.
Man, she's a great, great singer. Very open. We would do stuff like with her and Jerry Granelli.
Yeah.
And Julian Priester and then Chuck Deerdorf too. So we just, we did some pretty free, open stuff that was always fun to do.
Yeah. She's a beautiful spirit.
She
Wonderful.
tells good stories when she sings.
I know, she's funny. I like her statement, is anything okay?
Yeah, I know.
Let's see. I wanted to ask you. I have a few questions that sometimes I'll ask people, and but you've already kind of answered a lot of them. So I would like to ask you. Let's see. Oh, this is just a fun question. What record in jazz would you say is underrated in your opinion?
Oh my God. There's so many. I mean, I like one thing I like about music is that I have a very voracious appetite for music. So I actually prefer to listen to music without knowing what I'm listening to. And to be surprised by what I hear, go, whoa. So either I do that by having radio stations that play, and if I don't like it, I change it.
Yeah.
That's simple. But also I have I'm still old school, I still have an iPod, and a little iPod that has like 20,000 tunes in it. So when we go out for drives, around here, Washington State with my wife, and they would just, put it on shuffle, and stuff comes in that I never heard, and I go, wow, what is that? And most times I don't even know what it is. So yes, there's a lot of, what I say is that there's music being made. A lot of, if you talk to a lot of people of, say, a certain age,
Yeah.
and what you hear is that, back in the day, everything was so good. People used to do these things. They don't do that anymore. Nowadays, you don't, TV is horrible, and the radio is horrible, and everything is horrible. So, which I cannot really disagree with. But at the same time, I get to hear young kids making music these days that's absolutely mind-blowing and very well done. So I think that the question, you can always gripe and complain that, no, used to be better. Some things probably used to be better, but I don't think that that's like, music is dying.
Yeah.
Because people said that all the time. When people came up with the first recordings, the first records, people say, that's the death of music, because nobody would ever listen to live music because now you can have records. Or when radio started to play music. So there's always something that, and of course, music has been transferred in position from being an essential service that musicians do
Yeah.
to keep their communities and their cities and their families sane. Because is actually, it's better than, it's like vitamins. It's like the food is nourishment, but because it's invisible and intangible, it creates so many things. And now it's being sort of degraded to the level of what they call content. So you produce content, and that content gets streamed somewhere by somebody who's actually making a lot of money from that content that you provided, but you never see the results. It's not that.
Yeah.
So it's like you're a farmer. So instead of selling your potatoes at the market, now your potatoes become the French fries at some giant food chain, and you have no more connection to how that thing ends, and that thing never comes back to you.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot to bemoan, and there's a lot to be said about the state of affairs that actually makes music not be anymore a means of survival to musicians. But at the same time, I have to say I'm very fortunate, because that's all I do.
Yeah.
I'm not planting potatoes yet, but I'm still making music every day. And whether I'm teaching my classes, which of course, I invite everybody if you're interested. I am always coming up with courses, and also all my previous courses, which they go by rhythms from Brazil. A lot of them are associated with Brazilian music.
Do you teach just through your own?
My own thing. It's what we call mom and pop business. It's just we come up, me, my wife, and also our kids help with designing the flyers and coming up with a course, and then we do as I said, I'm halfway through the Brazilian piano course now. And if anybody's interested, they can just go on my website, and there's a list of all the previous courses. They are all archived, so you can actually get to see all the previous courses or engage live on some that are happening. We also do listening sessions in which we take like a record that I produced, like a lot of Hermeto records that I produce, and we listen. We take 2 hours to listen to an album and explain it, telling the stories, sharing scores, sharing the backstories and how those things were made. So a lot of people are interested in that. So instead of being something which is like localized, I taught college for 26 years, but now I'm teaching to people from all over who are interested in coming and learning about this music. So I have students from Europe and all over Brazil, wherever they want to be, and doing like instructional videos too. I work with a site called Piano Groove, in which I do 2 seminars a month. And this is all fun. It's a great way to connect with people worldwide.
Yeah.
So that's it. It's music every day, and finding a way to stay sane, to stay balanced, and to stay healthy, because that's what we all want, right?
Yes. And as long as you're talking about this particular kind of subject matter, so I think the musicians I know, eventually we always get into these conversations about what we're doing. I mean, what is it that we're doing? Like, are we just making music because we're creative artists? Are we making music specifically to share and put out into the world and make the world balanced? Are we doing it? What about the money? Why do we do the CDs? Why do we even make CDs anymore? When it's so cost strange, prohibitive. And so anything in there that you want to speak up on?
It's always a matter of, used to be the music was attached to a physical product, where it was an album and now a vinyl or a CD, and now it's just a stream of bits, that you put up. Like this record of solo piano that I played a track for you, this was there's no CD. It only exists in the streaming world. It's on those platforms of YouTube and Spotify and Apple and Deezer, and it goes there. Am I going to make any money out of the record? Unless it gets put in the next episode of Ted Lasso, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's but you still do it, and there's a certain sense. You make music. It's a funny thing, because in a way we all need to survive. We all need to, and I think that it's also there's a tendency, and this has been for a while, even before, that people to just treat everything as a kind of like, okay, here's the price of a CD, and it's like you don't go around. Let's say you go to Los Angeles and you get, okay, what's the price of a plate of pasta? And you go to 12 restaurants, you're going to get 12 different prices. Are all the pastas the same? No, they're not. Some are amazing, some are, some are really horrible. And so you cannot say that. So there's a sense that there's a value to what you do.
Yeah.
And that value is never going to be given to you by the other people. Because they always look at it and say, okay, how I can get your music for free. Why would I pay it?
Yeah.
So I think the person has to find enough value in what they do and value their own work. Because, okay, I'm giving you something, and in a way, the whole NFT, I'm not even going there because I don't know exactly how it works. I have friends that I know, even Hermeto has NFT offers out there, which is like non-fungible tokens. There are ways that people buy digital blockchain certificates to own something.
Oh,
But I
yeah.
don't even think in owning music is just like a. So in that sense, I mean, I'm from the time where I used to work for a month to be able to buy one record, you know, to save that money. And you buy the record, it's like, oh my God, I got this thing. And it was like a property that you had, you know. And nowadays the music streams. It passes by you like an actual water stream. It's just, whoa, it's gone. I might never see this again or hear this again. So it's all part of that. I think that I don't have any like big words of wisdom on what is due. But as far as to why, I do it because if I didn't play music, I would be a really unbearable person to be around. And I'd be nasty and cranky, and I have horrible humor and probably end up doing some really stupid things out there. So I think that it keeps me sane, and apparently the people that hear the music also have some benefits. You know, I don't mind playing in a restaurant, and the people who are here, and they're not even aware of what they're hearing. But it's funny how you can actually interfere with their moods by what you do. It's like you're pulling these invisible strings, and you see people going, and they're engaged, and then they stop and they go like, wow, it's like you just hooked at something and you got their attention for maybe 2 minutes, if that much. And then he lets go again. So it's kind of a catch and release fishing. You know, you catch them, then you release them back on the stream. So for me, I love that. I love, in a way, the fact that you are, when I play for people to
Yeah.
hear, I, in a way, get to hear my music for the first time through them.
Yeah.
You're going to connect antennas. Your antenna connects to their antenna, connecting to your music. So in a way, you get to that feedback loop.
Yeah.
So I love that. And that can happen sometimes also on videos. And, you know, the pandemic, I did a lot of collaborations with a lot of people, including some great singers from Brazil, Mônica Salmazo, Joana Duá. And so for me, it's a big honor that otherwise, without the pandemic, I would not have done a duo with Mônica Salmazo. I mean, she's on one of my records, but otherwise it would be like, okay, let's gig. No, that would just not happen.
Yeah.
So the fact that music is invisible and intangible lends itself well to those intangible things such as the internet and the online streams.
Yeah.
It flows right along.
Yeah. I have a friend online. He's a guitarist named Taylor Hatch, and he always asks very good questions. And one of his questions is, I'm curious if you've, over the years, shaped a practice routine focused on improving counterpoint on piano for voice leading. And he said that's something I've seen Chico Pinheiro do on guitar.
Yeah, Chico's a great guy. I love playing with him. Yeah, I mean, the practice of music is always something, you know. I don't have like a fixed prescription regimen for practicing because sometimes 10 minutes will give you the insight, other times you need 10 hours.
Yeah.
So nowadays I'm practicing a lot because I have this 3 piano project coming in. So it's a great way to strengthen my reading abilities and also my interpreting abilities on the piano. But I compose a lot too, and I also just sit down and noodle around. Just let the music come. Just like not come with it. Not everything has to be like, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I know exactly. I'm gonna sit down. I have that. I go, okay, now I'm gonna practice this piece of music because I played the other 3, and now this one is on the bottom of the pile. I gotta bring it up. But I believe in really making music be internalized as much as possible. So all these things will come in by themselves without, the less you consciously interfere or try to control the music. I tend to like the results of stuff that's spontaneous better than stuff that's like super planned. So this latest album was basically like that. I walk into a place thinking I was going to do one song and ended up recording a whole album, and I didn't have any tunes. Oh, here's the tunes I'm going to. No, they ask me to play them. The music asks to be played. So if you're sensitive to that, you just will, okay, you want it? Okay, I'll do it. And I find a way to like lead you into, so that sense, that's, for me, that's great practice too. There's an element of directed practice in which you play a specific piece of music, and there's also just the exploration of, okay, I'm just going to jump into the ocean and see what kind of animals come up. And you're there swimming, and there's no end to that. At one point, I say, okay, enough, I'm tired, let's go home. But otherwise, you can stay for a long time. And playing live, being able to do that live, for me, it's fascinating. I love playing live because of this. Stuff happens that you had no idea.
I'm sure that borders in or crosses over into your teaching philosophy, because what you speak like you're a teacher in life, but I'm sure that in your teaching, all of this stuff just flows over. And do you have a strict teaching philosophy, a little stricter, or I guess if you're speaking about one subject, you're focused on the one subject, but
I go all over the place. People sometimes say, wait, why are you talking about that? And then somehow you find a way to connect it to the other thing that you wanted to say. So I kind of like sometimes just go in there's two ways of teaching traditionally from the Greeks. That one of them was what they call gradus ad parnassum, which means degrees or steps to the mountain.
yeah.
Which you go 1, 2, 3, and now you go to number 4, and then and so on. So that's gradus ad parnassum, is like that progressive learning by steps, by levels, categories.
Right.
The other one is what's called peripatetic, which is not pathetic, but it's peripatetic, means you are wandering around the garden. They say that, Aristotle used to teach this way, in which you take your students in the garden, there's a flower blooming today. He goes, oh, this flower here can show us this thing. And nobody knew that flower was going to be there. So they find the spontaneity of just walking around and seeing something and using that as the hook to talk about something which is relevant to the subject. But it's non-linear. So instead of starting at the beginning, advancing, you start anywhere and you end up somewhere else. So I like both ways. Like one thing I love to do, especially in practice, like ensemble. If I'm working with an ensemble and I'm teaching them music, I rarely show up with a score. I teach them the music by ear. Play the music for them and say, here's your part, here's your part, your part. And if they play it and it sounds good, then they earn the score for having played the music. So the score becomes the last step in the process of learning the music, and then you use it to remember it, to get back to it as a reference. Because we know when we learn to speak before we learn how to write. So people expect musicians to be reading before they can play. And I know it's okay if you have 10 minutes and you got to learn a new piece of music and play it on a recording. Yes, you better be a good reader. But the actual way that the music, having worked with so many musicians who are amazing readers but not very good interpreters, I would take any time somebody who can learn by ear, interpret the music, and then learn how to read it.
Yeah.
So that's another philosophy of teaching that I have, which is I think that people, and Hermeto taught us this way. So much of his music, he just played it for us. And we learned it, and then we had to write it, what he played. And other times you come up with a full score. But that, as the progression of our abilities went on, he would just play stuff. He would be playing the piano, I'm looking over his shoulders, and I'm supposed to jump in and continue what he's doing as he get out of the piano. The music would stop. So I was supposed to come in and do exactly what he was doing. So that's a fantastic way of learning. Like, somebody jumps off the bike and you have to jump in the pedals and continue biking. So that's, he did it a lot. And then after a while, he moves on to the bass and to the drums and to the saxophone and play the whole arrangement to come together like in layers.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's so cool. I found you with Monica.
Oh, you want to hear something? I got it here.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
there's on her. She has a whole series of duos.
yeah, that's what I was looking
I'm
for.
number 24.
I have here, I'll show you what I have. And so I have, I guess this is the same one.
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
Yep, that's it.
This is so gorgeous.
Desfolhando meu caderno de notas, encontrei seu endereço, resolvi telefonar. Alô, alô, como vai você? Senti muitas saudades, vou aí lhe visitar. Foi desfolhando meu caderno de notas, encontrei seu endereço, resolvi telefonar. Alô, alô, é 557, é você mesma, Elizabeth, hoje eu quero lhe falar. Não sei se ainda posso lhe chamar de meu amor. Não sei se ainda existe aquela velha intimidade. Talvez minha lembrança não lhe seja bem distinta. Sou eu, Joãozinho Boa Pinta. Sei que você se lembra, por favor, não diga não. Não venha com a desculpa que eu errei a ligação. Eu não errei, eu não errei, eu não. Não sei se ainda posso lhe chamar de meu amor. Não sei se ainda existe aquela velha intimidade. Talvez minha lembrança não lhe seja bem distinta. Sou eu, Joãozinho Boa Pinta. Sei que você se lembra, por favor, não diga não. Não venha com a desculpa que eu errei a ligação. Eu não errei, eu não erro não. Eu não errei, eu não errei, eu não.
That was fun.
Great. Oh my God. So at last, I can ask this question.
Oh,
As I've been watching her,
mhm.
all year, I have been really dying to know technically how you guys do it. You're obviously not in the same house,
Nope.
right? So
Thousands of miles away.
so are you it looks like you're doing it at the same time, but I know that's impossible. So
Smoke and mirrors.
did you do it first and then she comes on, but then you look like you're responding to her?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, that she's such an amazing responder, like she has this incredible sensitivity. We talked about it. We said, we got to do something together because she played also one of my duo records, and her husband's one of my dearest friends from way back, Teco Cardoso. And so we said, what are we going to do? So I had this tune in my mind because that's an old song, very old song that Dorica Amy recorded with Joyce Moreno.
Yeah.
And I always loved that song. I really, and there was nobody else besides, this is an old song from the 40s or something like this.
Yeah.
So we figured out the key, and then we just said, okay, let's do it like this. We kind of had a rough agreement on what the form of the song was going to be. So I recorded the piano first, but we agreed that it should be from this side, so it looked like I was looking at her. We actually tried another thing in which I was at the keyboard facing front, but then it's like I'll be like she was here. In this way, I'm actually facing her.
Yeah.
And then she did her thing. So I recorded first, I sent the video to her, she did the editing and everything, and that's the result. I mean, it was...
It just looks so real. And in all of them, they look like everybody's in the same house, at least,
And she always takes care, like she makes sure that there's something that fits what the other person is either wearing or a flower there. So she's very good at putting like little details in the way that we really have the sense that there's the connection.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, I love her work. I watch everything she does. And so actually we're supposed to do another one. I haven't done it yet. I should get onto it. We picked a Hermeto song that, again, it's been very unknown. Very, but she knows it, and I'm supposed to do it one of these days.
Oh, that's great. Wow, yeah. I know Dan. My friend Dan was the one who told me about her, her pandemic series, and then I was totally hooked, and then I was trying desperately to think about all the possibilities of how it was happening, but so he's commenting on that. The quality is great. Let's see. So, have you ever worked with the wonderful Tatiana Para?
No, I love her voice, and she's really brilliant. I've heard stuff of hers that's absolutely mind blowing, but I haven't been to São Paulo in many years. And even though it's one of my favorite places in the world to play, so no, I never met her. I'm a fan of her work. I hope one day it works because she plays a lot with my friend Fabio Torres. And there's a lot of people I love to work with. Tatiana is one of them, and Rosa Passos is another one. That
Oh yeah, oh my God.
and she just sent me a gorgeous message the other day, and I was so touched by what she said. I'm a big fan of. So there's so many great singers, but I've had a chance also to work with people like Joyce Moreno, who's actually in a few of my records, and Monica Samazo, Joana Duá, and Claudia Vilela, and there's some really good singers out there. Always a fun to work with.
Yeah, Tatiana came to LA several times to work with a pianist named Vardan of Sepian.
I've heard of him. Yeah, Vardan. Yeah.
Excellent player, yeah. You probably know Otmaro Ruiz, right?
Oh yes, I know Otmaro. Yes, fantastic player.
He's a wonderful part of
Yes.
our community. Yeah, he's really,
I met him when he was a student at Cal Arts in that first tour in 1990. We did with Hermeto. We came to LA and did a 2-day residency at Cal Arts, and Otmaro was a student. That's when I met him. He's a brilliant player, yes.
yeah, he really is a great player, great person too. And his wife, Katina
Yeah, yeah.
de Luna. Oh, somebody's talking Portuguese here. My Portuguese is really terrible. So it's Marcy Castro. And she says, Obrigada, Jovino, agradeço sua participação.
Pretty good. I got it. Yeah. Just thanking for my participation there. So thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I remember when I met Jovino, it was at Jazz Camp West, which Stacy Hoffman and Madeline Eastman were creating that at the time. And hard to talk about, but it's about a week in the forests, a YMCA camp. So there's cabins, and Jay, I saw Jay actually come on, Jay Clayton. So Jay and I were there together. And so we stayed in the cabins, and some of the courses were in cabins, but some of them were outdoors. And then at night, when you were walking back to your cabin, you'd hear something, and then you went over, and Jovino is leading this jam in the middle of the forest.
Yep.
It is such a high,
I know.
just
Absolutely.
incredible.
Oh, that happened 2 weeks ago. We had 3 nights of jam at that same spot, a little clearing in the forest, the redwoods there. And it's called Gold's Gulch because our friend Michael Golds is the one who set up that scene. And all is a pleasure. For me, it's one of the most inspiring things is to sit because I love trees and I love forests and I love just being outdoors at night.
Yeah,
You start playing this music, so it's like you light a fire.
yeah,
And people come and suddenly, people are like sitting there, but you don't see really who they are because they are out in the dark. So you just playing this music and it's so much fun. I mean, I could do that for forever. It's so much fun to do.
yeah, just great, man. Whew. I'm really sorry I missed that, but
So
sometimes
it will probably happen in the summer again. We hope,
I'm hoping Brazil camp happens again because I've never been, but my friend Stefan Oberhoff, every year he says, he calls me Katrina, and he says, you have to come to Brazil camp. And I always say, yeah,
It's fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot of jams there too. We've had a lot of jams over the years there.
I think I have felt like I don't know enough about Brazilian music to come and jam, you know.
Well, that's the cool thing is that it's always open to so much. It doesn't have, when it's basically a jam, it's doesn't necessarily have to be Brazilian music. There's an accent in it because we speak with that accent. But it can be anything else. You can do jazz standards or you can do pop tunes. But so it's not necessarily because when people feel intimidated by not knowing the music or something like that, they feel excluded. So again, music can be used as an exclusion.
Yeah.
Okay, if you don't speak the language, if you don't know these tunes, then you're outside of the circle. But one thing that I like to do is there's so much music, and if there's none, we can make something right fresh in the moment. You can take two chords and build, there's so many beautiful tunes that are made on two chords, like João Donato's music. I love his music because it's so simple, but it's extremely groovy. The form is easy to catch. Once you hear it a couple of times, you already know which way is up, which way is down. So you can just jump in and create your own thing, And because of that, music becomes inclusive, not exclusive.
Yeah.
And I love it when you see people, when I just, like a person I've never played with, hey, come on, let's do something. What do you want to do? And people go, oh, I don't know any Brazilian music. Forget it. That's not it. We're just going to play music. Like when people put the label in front of the music, it blocks so much,
Yeah. Okay. Well, now you just you solved that problem for me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Taylor is excuse me. Taylor goes to UNT. He wants to know if you are in touch with Jose Aponte.
Jose, I'm sorry, what's the last name?
Apponte.
I'm not sure I know Jose Aponte.
Okay, that's
I haven't been to UNT in many years. I've been there, worked with them, and John Murphy was, the big band, but that was maybe 15 years ago or more. It's been a while.
And Joyce wants to know if you're able to visit and play in Brazil, or is it in lockdown?
Well, I haven't been in Brazil in over 2 years now. My father passed away in May, and I couldn't go. It was too crazy. So I'm there all the time through the medium of the internet, through WhatsApp, and I'm actually doing more work in Brazil now, like working with Monica or mentoring students in the post-grad students in the university in Belo Horizonte, stuff that I never did when I could go there. Now I'm doing that through the internet.
Yeah.
So there's that, but I'm hoping to go sometime soon, but I don't know when. Things are, apparently there's more people being vaccinated there, and my family's there, and I miss them terribly, and I want to go and hang out, but so far it hasn't been yet. Not possible right now, but maybe, who knows, before the end of the year I might be able, I'd love to go and just, connect. And play. There's so many great musicians I play with there. So all of them so much fun.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I interviewed, I'm trying to think of his last name, Benjamin. You know Benjamin?
Taubking?
Yes. I interviewed him on the show.
Great pianist. Yes, I know him.
Yeah. I just found him online, I guess, and I was just enthralled with his playing, beautiful sound, and
Oh yeah, great sensitive pianist. Yeah.
yeah, very nice person too. Yeah. And I know you're going to Spain soon. And how long will you be gone? 2 or 3 weeks?
Close to a month, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow, close to a month. That's a nice vacation.
Yeah, it will be good. See family, and also I love the culture. I love the food, of course, and it's such a beautiful country. So we're hoping to get there. Our daughter lives there, so we'll get to hang out.
Did you say you're going other places as well, or just Spain?
We thought of that, but right now Europe is a little crazy. So I know at least Spain seems to be a good. People are, the level of care that they're taking for people's lives seems to be good.
Mm-hmm.
But there's other places that we thought of going, like, supposed to go to England, hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Or there's so many other places in Europe that I love to visit, like France, Germany, Switzerland, Italy. But probably not this time. But who knows? Maybe things open up. Or just hop in a car, because that's the thing about Europe. You can just drive a couple of hours and you're somewhere else.
I know. Oh, that's good. Well, we're coming to an end towards here, and I really want to thank you so much for giving us 2 hours of your time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Great questions. I appreciate everybody who's commenting and asking questions. Good friends and people I don't know, but so it's always a pleasure. Thank you, Cathy.
It's nice to talk to you for 2 hours.
Thank you. Thank you. Didn't drive any of us crazy yet.
No.
Well,
Very
thanks so
fun.
much, Dan, and I really appreciate. Thank you for doing this. This is really, keeping all of us healthy and connected. So that I believe that that's a really good thing to do.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I feel that way too. It's great.
Awesome. Well, one of these days I'll be down in LA. Who knows?
Oh, well, let me know ahead of time.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Cathy.
Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot.
Have a great day. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. You can leave, and I will tell people who's coming on next.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, Jovino. Wow, that was really nice. Whew. 2 hours went by really fast. Man. Well, so Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday are my live days. And Tuesday, tomorrow is Wayne Brassel. And Wayne and I are old friends. And he was living in, he lived in LA for a while. And so, sorry, I'm just I'm looking for some music to play in the background. And that's what I'm going to do. And I have to, of course, music from me. Let's see if I can hear it. I can't hear it. Interesting. Huh. All right. I wonder why I can't hear that. Maybe I have to do it on YouTube. I'll just try to do that on YouTube here. Cathy Segal-Garcia. And I'll put intuition. And that's a record that I did with 10 intuition with 10 different piano players. Here we go. Play album. Okay. There we go. I'll put that in the background. So, yeah, Wayne Brassel, great guitar player. He lives in Denmark. I think he lives, near Copenhagen. And he's a really wonderful player. And then Wednesday, I have an actress, singer, great jazz singer, but her face is very familiar. You've seen her on TV shows, named Clee Thompson, CLE, Clee Thompson. And that should be really interesting because she's had a long career. And then Thursday through Sunday, I will post from the archives. And Thursday will be Victor Orlando, who was a percussionist for Santana. And he's a great conga player, like really great. He swings, it's great. Friday, Bill Goodwin, a drummer with a very eclectic background, very nice. And Saturday, my dear friend, Brazilian guitarist, singer named Paulinho Garcia, who lived in Chicago for a long time, and then came to LA. So that's Saturday. And Sunday, Roberta Donay. So she's a great singer from San Francisco area. She has a very interesting career. I had a great time last weekend. I had an amazing gig at the conference room on Saturday. That's a jam session. We had some great people in the audience. It was a beautiful evening outdoors. And Sunday, yesterday, I went to a jazz beach party, which was really fun. Then I went over to the World Stage and finally saw their singer jam session. Very nice, outdoors. So this week, Friday, Cecile McLaurin Salvant and her great pianist, whose name is sitting on the tip of my brain, they're going to be at the Ford Theater in LA. What else? Yeah, and Sunday, if you guys are here, Mary Stallings, the great Mary Stallings, great jazz singer, kind of out of the element of Ella and Carmen and Sarah, but not a copy. She's going to be playing at the LA Athletics Club at the Jazz Salon there. That's during the day. So I think that's kind of about it for information. Next week, we'll have Lorraine Feather, Bob Bowman, Chris Blondal for some of my live guests. And thanks for being here. I appreciate it. And it's always so special and nice to talk to these people, isn't it? It's great. So, Sullivan Fortner. Thank you, Joyce. Wow. Thank you so much. And we're listening to Ruby, My Dear. And that is, Ruby, My Dear played with, I think it was Jane Getz on this song. Jane Getz. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Bye.